We're live. We are live. What's happening, Fresh Baked? I made this public, didn't I? All right. Brief overview of our discussion here while we wait for folks to join up. Hello, Lucas, Daniel. The title is the discussion topic is what is the red button option? And this is going to be a conversation related to a thread that I found on WDWMAGIC.com, which is a fan site, kind of like WDW News Today, etc. And they have a very active and fun message forum, where they get a lot of good stuff comes out of WDW Magic in terms of rumors and discussion topics and inside information. You have a lot of people, incognito, Disney people, incognito on that forum. So now, before we start talking about what the red button option is, I want to say up front that I'm just talking about, I only want to discuss, or I'm only trying to discuss what it is, as opposed to whether or not it's going to happen or is a real thing. It's a rumor. It's a rumor. It's a thing that people have talked about, but I'm not here to say whether or not the rumor is true or if I believe it to be true. I'm just going to be talking about what it is and why it's being discussed. So let's see. But is anybody familiar with WDW Magic, or have you heard of this before I even get into it? Have you guys heard of the red button option? I would be curious to see what your comments are on that. Well, okay. Let me look at my notes here first of all. Somebody said it's a panic thing. It's a panic button, and that's actually kind of true. The red button option. We mentioned this in the video about the state of Disney that we did on Fresh Baked, about there being one of the things that's causing Disney some financial difficulty right now is China. And not just the parks and coronavirus or anything like that, but the relationship between the United States and China, and the fact that it's not good. It's not good, Bob. So China is a communist nation, the People's Republic of China. So their politics are much different than our politics here in the United States, in the same way that our politics were different than Russia's politics back in the 70s and 80s during the Cold War, because both of those countries are based on, or their politics were based on, communism. Russia is no longer a communist country today, but China still is. Just trying to look through the comments here to see if there's anything worth discussing. Okay, so recently, some current events in China have triggered a response from the United States government, and they're basically, we're in a trade war with China. We are in a financial war with China, and sanctions, tariffs, and now they signed an executive order that basically removed the most favored nation status of China, basically saying we're not going to deal with China anymore, trade-wise, financially. And that puts Disney in a very tricky spot because obviously we've got two parks in China, one in Shanghai, one in Hong Kong. And we have agreements. Disney has agreements with China on the operation of those. Unlike, let's say, the agreement that they have in Tokyo, which is mostly run by the OLC. If I have my information correct, I get a little fuzzy on the OLC from time to time. People will correct me on that. But anyway, so it's gotten so bad, as a matter of fact, that when they were announcing this, this, what do you call it, executive order against China, the Department of Justice actually, they mentioned Disney specifically with respect to their having members of the Communist Party in their management team in executive offices. And this was a problem for the Department of Justice. And they said so, publicly. Thank you, Regina, for the red button option emoji. That's cool. Okay, so all of that is preamble. All of that, I don't, again, try not to get into the politics of all this. I'm trying to paint a picture with respect to the position, the situation that Disney has found themselves in. Because Disney's already in bad financial shape. And, for a while, the China parks were the only ones that were open. Shanghai was the first one to open. Still is open. I don't know how well it's doing. Hong Kong is closing. We're going to get to Hong Kong here in a second, actually. But Disney has found themselves in a very precarious position in this because they're having trouble financially, right? Because of the virus, just like every other business is doing. Well, most other businesses are doing. And now they've got this additional pressure, this additional bit of drama with the United States government and their dealings with China, and Disney is stuck in the middle. And to sort of put this all into one, to summarize, the red button option is Disney may be discussing the possibility of selling the China park, selling Shanghai and Hong Kong back to the Chinese government, and then licensing the intellectual property, the IPs, Mickey and all those guys, licensing them for a fee, as opposed to having actual ownership or part ownership of those Chinese parks. Now, again, this is rumor. Some folks are like, what? No, this is rumor. And again, what I want to talk about is more about why and how, and does this seem like a thing that you could imagine for the Disney company? Now, they're not in good shape. We talked about this in the previous video that we did on the state of Disney. I'm going to catch up here. Yeah, Matt Abrams says, just join the chat. So pretty much how the Japan parks work. Yes, it would be similar to how Tokyo operates today with the OLC, the agreement that they have with the OLC. It would be similar to that. Okay, I'm trying to follow along here again. Louis Robles says, I'm sure Iger and other Disney execs knew this could be a possibility. China is communist and has been communist since before a deal was ever struck. China's been communist for, I don't even know how long. I'm not a historian, but yeah, it's been a long time, long before Disney. So, you sort of, what the U.S. government is kind of saying is, you've put yourself in bed with these guys, and now we're going to sort of reel that back in. They had the NBA had the same problem with China, because the NBA is huge in China. It's huge. And that was a lot of revenue that they were generating there. But I don't know if it was like a year ago, because there's a lot of civil unrest in China. Because they're starting to take away some personal freedoms. There's protests. You guys remember the protests not long ago? Like that's just, it hardly seems like a thing anymore. We forgot about talking about that, but a lot of protests in China. So the NBA basically lost China. China cut the cord with the United States because the NBA was outspoken about their disagreement with the Chinese government, how it was treating its citizens. They were pro-citizen, the NBA. Some of the people in the NBA were. And so that's already been done. The NBA has already lost that revenue. So I don't see why. I mean, the same thing could happen to Disney. So the discussion, for those just joining us, the red button option is with respect to China and U.S. relations and Disney and their China-based parks, Hong Kong and Shanghai, and the possibility that Disney may sell Hong Kong and Shanghai to the Chinese government and then license the Disney IP to the parks. In other words, taking out any sort of making it an arm's length transaction, as it were, which the government would probably not have a problem with us, licensing or Disney licensing their IP to China, but they're not in bed like Chinese communist members aren't embedded in Disney management in Shanghai and in Hong Kong. That seems to be, according to what I've heard, or actually I shouldn't say it's not rumor, that is definitely a problem for the Department of Justice. They have put Disney on notice as saying that's a thing, and we're watching that. Yes, they definitely do, Joey, make less money in all things. Joey Bell says, do they make less money doing that? In all things, it is better to own than to rent. Okay. It's better to own an intellectual property and then earn the revenue that is generated from that intellectual property than to license it out. That has been a true thing for all time. I'm just trying to follow up with some comments. Luis Robles says, since this is a war, and by the way, yeah, war is kind of it's not like a literal war, and it's not even like a Cold War like we had with Russia. It's just a trade war. Even though the United States they're making other arguments because of China's recent changes in, personal freedoms. The U.S. government is trying to, speak up for the Chinese people on that one. I got to go back to what Lewis says. Who says China would even have to pay? Who says they don't take over? Interesting question, Luis, because that's one of the things that people are upset about with China is that they have been accused of just straight up stealing U.S. intellectual property. I don't know how you take. I don't know. Let's just say China says, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm going to use your Mickey Mouse. I'm going to use your Goofy, and I'm going to use your Pluto, and I'm going to make a Cinderella castle, and I'm not going to give you a dime for it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, I don't know. I don't know what would we do. I don't know if you can, that's another thing that if there are international courts that it can take over there. And I don't know what kind of sanctions I guess they would sanction them, right? And then would stop trade, stop buying, because we buy a lot of stuff from China. We would have to stop buying stuff from China, and that creates a problem for a lot of U.S. business. So that's a tricky topic, which I'm not well versed enough. I'm not intelligent enough to have that conversation. So I would leave that one untouched, and we're going to try to focus on this topic, and that is whether or not it's a viable option for the Disney company to sell off Shanghai and Hong Kong. Yeah, see, this is for some, like Jeff Pike is saying, I'm with Lost Hero. The human rights abuse and the Algar people are facing at the hands of the Chinese government, and why those atrocities are worth our undivided attention. Some things are more important than Disney, and that's what's happening. Is that is becoming an overriding principle as part of this discussion. To wit, or I should say, to that extent, that is why this topic is coming up. Is people are saying it makes perfect sense for Disney to do this because you're killing two birds with one stone. You are providing much needed income to Disney at a time when they need it very badly. They need income. And secondly, you are removing yourself from that issue. You're absolving yourself. You're getting out of the way of a very problematic political situation. So why not do that? Why not take advantage of this opportunity as a good reason to sell off? Marty Snyder says the Apple rumor has been throwing them out a lot lately too. Are you talking about Apple buying Disney? Because that's been going around for years. That won't happen until Disney is desperate, I think. They would have to be very desperate for that to happen. But I digress. Let's try to keep the questions on topic. Okay. Interestingly, and this is one of the more interesting parts of this rumor, is that this is Chapek's idea. Or Chapek? Guys, tell me which one. Number one, Chapek. Number two, Chapek. I think it's number one, Chapek. I'm usually pretty good at pronouncing last names or people's names in general, but that one always confuses me. This is his idea. This is not an Iger plan. This is a Chapek plan. Thank you. Uh-oh. We got one. Okay, it's Chapek. Oh, Chapek? Chapek? Is there a 3? Chapek. This is a Chapek plan, not an Iger plan. Iger, some would say, is very much invested in maintaining a relationship with China. Some would even go so far as to say that is part of his legacy as a Disney president. Some would even go so far as to say that he's using the Chinese parks, or try to use the Chinese parks, as a means to elevate himself in the history of Disney as being the guy who really made Disney pop above and beyond anything that Walt did or anything that Eisner did. And you do have to give Eisner credit for rescuing Disney from a very bad position back in the 80s. So he's trying to create this new legacy for himself, saying, those guys, here's me up on this mountaintop because I did China. Meanwhile, Chapek is saying, we're broke. We're broke. And Chapek, okay, I'm going to try Chapek. I'm going to go with that one. We're broke. We need some cash. And this China thing is a problem. And some are saying that's a good example. A lot of people don't like Chapek, or Chapek. Chapek, I got to get used to this. A lot of people don't like Chapek. He was persona non grata during the Galaxy's Edge opening, for example. A lot of people pin all those weird merchandising decisions that they made at Disneyland, like putting product in the Main Street Cinema. But some people say that Chapek is actually the right kind of guy to have running the Disney company in this current environment. That you need somebody who has a mind, who has an eye for the bottom line. So I'm going to take this to you guys. Are you guys Iger folks or Chapek? Which do you prefer? Which of the Bobs do you prefer? Given even considering what I've just mentioned. That's part of the discussion. It's funny. We mentioned lots of Iger votes out there. Yeah, Walt. If only we could have Walt on this one. I wonder what Eisner's thinking right now, actually. Do you think that Eisner's back there just, with his feet on his desk saying, look at you guys trying to figure this one out while he runs his company, whatever he's doing over there now. Jennifer Dyer says Iger was far more charismatic. I wonder, though. I mean, I guess that matters a little bit. People sure seem to like him because Chapek definitely he has no personality or charisma. But is that what we need today for Disney? Do we need charisma, or do we need somebody who, wants to make sound financial decisions? Not to say that Iger can't do it, but I will say this, that if you want to talk about Iger's legacy in the Disney company, it's all about purchases. Iger has spent a ton of dough buying IP. Iger is responsible for Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, Shanghai. Do I have everything? Oh, Disney Plus and Fox. So he has he has put Disney in a very, he's grown the Disney bubble. But a lot of that is, imaginary. I guess I don't know what the word is. And Oswald too. I guess you can give him that. I don't think that this is the time for that. Now is the time for somebody to watch the bottom line, I think. Now, I was coming to a point about some of the news we were discussing in the State of Disney video, and that it was Iger, though, who wanted to open all 4 parks, and Chapek didn't at Walt Disney World. Chapek wanted a more measured, patient response, and Iger wanted everything open as soon as possible. Okay, I'm going to read some more comments here. Don and Kelly Skydance, I think Iger is smarter than Chapek. There's something sneaky about Chapek. He does have a squirrely look. I won't argue with that, but I honestly don't know. You know what? I was very outspoken about being anti-Chapek, but he's growing on me a little bit, but maybe it's just because of the times that we're in. Though the one thing I do worry about is Chapek's ability to capture magic, as somebody mentioned. But I think that right now, for the next 10 years, is all they have to do is just maintain the status quo. Just do that for the next 10 years. You don't have to change anything. I don't need any more expansion. I don't need any more new rides. I don't need any more upgrades or refurbs or anything. You could just do nothing for the next 10 years and I'd be okay. So Chapek, all he has to do is just maintain the status quo and watch the bottom line. And I think that that's a good place. Chapek is a good person for that kind of position. I'm going to check some comments. By the way, there's new information or new rumors coming around that this may segue nicely into our video on Friday about the Chapek Iger thing. I'll just tease that. This conversation is far from finished. The Iger Chapek thing. No, Regina says 5 years. No, I think 5 years is too narrow. I think it's going to take us 5 years just to even out from this. This whole situation is a nuclear bomb, and it takes that long. Look, if you're speaking those terms, it's going to take that long, relatively, for things to start to become normal again for Disney. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so let me go back to the red button option. Interesting thing that happened right after this, right after the executive order that spoke towards the relationship between China and the United States, Hong Kong closed over a couple hundred cases. Right? There were just a few hundred new cases in Hong Kong, and they said, "No, we gotta close it down. We gotta shut it down. We're concerned about the coronavirus in Hong Kong." And at the time when this happened, I was very confused. I thought it was very confusing. How is it that now I understand that there's different governments involved. But honestly, no sane person would look at that and say, okay, we're going to open up Florida, who's getting 10,000 cases a day, but we're going to close Hong Kong because they got 52 new cases this week. No sane person would look at that and say those are two reasonable responses. So one of those things, something is wrong, and you cannot just put that on the politics of how the Hong Kong government wants to manage Hong Kong Disney with respect to coronavirus. It's not, it can't, how could you possibly think that is, a thing? Like that doesn't make any sense. It's very confusing. There must be some other thing. But if we are to say that the reason why they closed the Hong Kong park was because of the executive order, and that they were doing this in reaction, the Hong Kong government was doing this as a reaction to the United States move, then what about Shanghai? Because Shanghai's still open. Now, I'm not an expert. Again, I will say this freely. I'm not an expert on Chinese politics. So I don't know if operationally Shanghai is different than Hong Kong. And I'm not talking about with Disneyland. I'm talking about with their government. Is the Shanghai government, as part of China, run differently as Hong Kong is? And I feel like that's at least a possibility. And maybe some folks who are well versed in Chinese politics can maybe speak to that. Why, is there a basis politically within the government to close Hong Kong and not Shanghai? Okay, so does the city of Hong Kong is on complete lockdown right now? Really, Connor, is that right? Connor says, you mean like total lockdown? No, nothing's open? Huh. Kay Garofalo says, next week will be when a lot of answers. August 4th is next earnings report, and Disney is down remarkably little for the earnings loss possibility. I don't know about that. They're losing a ton of dough. Yeah, you can't go to restaurants. Hong Kong had 64 cases after 0 for 3 weeks. They traced the transmission of 48 of them and found cause for concern. The next day it rose over 200 and the city closed. Man, they just go for it. Hong Kong is just like, lock it down. They don't care about the economy or anything. They just locked it down. Hong Kong is more Western than the rest of China. Interesting. PDXer says Shanghai is mainland China. Hong Kong was a semi-autonomous government. The People's Republic of China is trying to end this. So that's kind of contrary to my thought process then, isn't it? Interesting. Okay. So for those, a few people have commented that they're just new to the discussion on this live stream, and I'm going to just quickly paraphrase. The red button option is the possibility of the Disney company selling Shanghai and Hong Kong parks back to China in order to satisfy two issues. One, that they have severe cash flow problems, and two, because of the ongoing poor relationship between the United States and Chinese governments. And whether or not, the discussion is that a good idea? Should Disney sell off Hong Kong Disney and Shanghai Disney to the Chinese government? Okay. The parks would continue to operate. Yes, Disney would license the intellectual property to the Chinese. I don't know who would own the park. I don't know if the Chinese government owns the parks or if it's a private corporation. But they would license the Disney IPs to them for a fee. Okay. Yeah, and one of the I guess reasons for Disney to consider this is because it is very difficult to play the middle, which is what they've been trying to do for a long time. It's difficult to play the middle between two countries who are at war. I use, because it's not a literal war, but a trade war. The United States and China aren't getting along at all. And here's Disney in the middle trying to do business in China when the US government is saying, we're not going to do any more business with China. So, and that actually, there is I think, a potential, and this is something that Disney may want to get out ahead of. There is the potential, I think, for the government to seize Disney's property in Hong Kong or in China, to take control of it, or if not, literally, then to just shut it down. And then I don't know what Disney does, in terms of recovering any sort of financial loss there vis-a-vis selling intellectual property. But that's a bad place for Disney to be in. Imagine just losing all of that investment because of the situation here with United States and China. Disney may want to get ahead of that and at the same time earn a little money. And somebody had mentioned that that whole position may change. The relationship between China and the United States may change, if there's a change in administration, which is possible, but it's not guaranteed either way. The current administration could change their mind, and the incoming, if it were to change, if the administration changes in November, the incoming administration may not undo what's been done now. There's no guarantee at all. Let's see. Marty Snyder says Disney owning 43% is better than owning 0 when China takes it. Exactly. Somebody had asked that question earlier. Do you make less money by licensing your AP than owning it? Absolutely. They own 43%, which is a bunch of money. Okay. That is it's not 100 like they own here, with Walt Disney World, certainly, but 43% of the business is a bunch of money. Make no mistake. Disney, well, I don't know if they did make me profit before. I don't know if they're making profit now. Okay, let me just check on the comments here. Elements Integrated says many companies are downsizing due to all of this. Disney is no exception. We are not near a recovery economically yet. Letting go of Shanghai and Hong Kong could be a no-brainer. If you were to ask me direct, is this something that Disney should do? My answer would be yes. I think they should, because there are too many variables. I feel like the situation is too complex and long-term. A lot of people are waiting for the quick fix. They're waiting for something to just trigger the economy and turn it right back on and everything goes back to normal. This is a nuclear bomb that has gone off on and affected many people. Starbucks. Have you guys heard the news about Starbucks? They're dying. A lot of business. We may be seeing the end of actual movie theaters. They could literally become extinct. Disney, as an enterprise, as a product, is not essential. It's not. None of what Disney does is essential, other than maybe broadcast television, in the sense that people, need television and for information, as it were. So it's one of those things that just people look at the attendance that's happening right now at Walt Disney World. It's dead. Disney World is dead. Even though they're like, hey, come on in, they're like, nah, I don't think so. So if you were to ask me, is this a good idea? Should Disney sell to China? If it were a real option, if it is a real thing, I'm good with it. As long as the parks stay open. I would like to see Shanghai stay open and Hong Kong stay open, and Disney just take what they can get from the licensing of the IPs. Okay. Yeah, Kristen Segura says it'll be years before we see the long-term effects of this. There's a petition to save theaters. Okay, but what does that mean? A petition is pointless, honestly. It really is pointless in a lot of things. It's just people voicing an opinion, but it doesn't actually lead to change in a lot of cases, I don't think. At least not this. We're not in charge of whether or not theaters open. If they're not making any money, they're going to close. It's just the bottom line. Supply and demand will dictate whether or not theaters stay open. Okay, so we got sidetracked there. No, I guess that is it. So, okay, let me open this up to you guys if you have any questions for me on this topic while I catch up on some other comments here. Has anybody been to one of the China parks? I'd actually like to know that as well. Somebody says, build Disney parks in the USA, safe investment. Well, yes, true. But I don't think we're going to be seeing any expansion in the near term. I think that all that's on hold for a good 5 or 10 years. They're going to finish up what they started, but we won't see any new projects for a while. Not to mention, I'm always a little bit skeptical of adding new Disney parks in the States for a couple reasons. I mean, I think one maybe might not be a bad idea, but you start to sort of cannibalize yourself. If you create too much of the one thing, all you're going to do is take the business from another park and put it somewhere else. But I think that the supply, easily before all this happened, the supply, or the demand, I should say, for Disney parks was greater than the supply, and that we could have probably sustained at least one more park here in the United States, probably in California, another California park, not something in the Midwest or anything like that. We probably could have sustained another park in California. But at some point, they will just go to this park instead of that park, which, again, that's not a problem originally because there was too many. And you could have still filled Disneyland and then filled the Villains Park or the Star Wars Park or the Marvel Park or whatever you wanted to call it, the Epcot, the Westcott. I would love to see a Westcott for that matter. No, San Francisco won't work because the weather's too bad. It would be in Southern California. I would think something like something just a little further inland. But not so far from the beach that you can't drive there, like an hour from the beach. Does anybody know on that topic how far Disney World is from the beach? But in any case, in today's market, there certainly is not enough demand to create another park, to build another park. There's no chance that they're building another gate. 2 hours. See, you could build a park. You could build a park in Corona or Yorba Linda, something like that, where the temperatures are still pretty moderate. They're not too bad. A matter of fact, I think that something like in the hills, in the hills back there, you can find where you can kind of isolate yourself from the rest of Orange County. and that's not a bad idea. And then I think Corona is only 2 hours from the beach, and it's 2 hours, probably 2 hours from Universal. Palm Springs is too hot. No. Fresno, no. Okay, guys, Fresno. Jason Davis. There was talk, Marty Snyder, of Disney buying that lot, that empty space that was undeveloped for a while in Tustin off of Red Hill. I live in that area, so I'm familiar with this. But that never happened. That never materialized. The Tustin lot wound up. They developed it. It's under development now. So it's going to be a mixed residential and commercial. But that Tustin lot wasn't bad. Well, actually, I take that back. It was the Angels were talking about buying and building another stadium, a baseball stadium in that Tustin property, and then the Disney would come in and take the Anaheim, the Angels Anaheim Stadium lot and build there. But all that's gone. The Angels bought that lot, the Anaheim lot. They own that land now. The Angels do. It's not owned by the government. So they're going to develop that. So the whole Anaheim Stadium thing is over. Disney Vegas. No, I don't think so. I mean, the heat is one problem. And then there's the whole issue with, being a family. I know that Vegas is very family oriented now, but it's still not all the way family oriented, if you catch my drift. So no, that's not a possibility. How did we get into China to building a park in Tustin? I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to look back at some of these comments. So let's I want to bring this back to you guys. Given what we've talked about, the logic behind the decision. If you were to vote, I don't have a way to put a vote up on a live stream. But answer, okay, do you think that Disney should sell Hong Kong and Shanghai to China in order to rid themselves of the political drama that is going on now between between the United States and China, and to create some income, which they very much need? So let's hear it. Because when I first opened this conversation, look at that. There's almost all yeses, just the occasional no's. When I first started this conversation on this live stream, people hadn't really heard of this idea, and many were shocked and thought, no way. But as you kind of consider it, as you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, does it not? Put it to you this way. In 1955, nobody cared if there was a Disney park in China. In 1965, nobody cared if there was a Disney park in China. The same could be said of 75 and 85 and 95. This is a new thing. Disney parks in China, or internationally, period. Disneyland Paris was, the first out of the country park, and this is a new concept. It's in its infancy still, 20 years, if that. So I say that because people sometimes feel like, oh my God, I can't even possibly contemplate a world without Shanghai Disney. Well, I can, because there never was one when I was going to Disneyland as a kid. There was no such thing. So I can easily imagine a world without Shanghai Disney or without Hong Kong Disney. Having said that, I would prefer that they did exist, because I think they're both beautiful parks. Was it 83? Okay, so we'll stop at 80. We'll stop in the 80s then. For some reason, I was thinking it was the 90s. Or are you talking about, oh no, that's Tokyo was in 83. Really? That doesn't seem right at all. In any case, I can imagine a world without them. I'm fine with it, because what's most important to me is the solvency of the Disney company, the solvency of Disneyland, and Walt Disney World. Those three things are the most important thing, and everything else is collateral. I mean, that's just, it can come or go. I'm not married to the idea of international parks, although Disneyland Paris is freaking beautiful, and so is Shanghai and Hong Kong and Tokyo. They're all great. I'm not married to the idea of a Disney cruise line. I could easily say, let's just cut our losses on that. Let's try not to. You don't have to worry about saving the Disney cruise line either. I want the parks to be saved, Disneyland, Walt Disney World. I want the Disney company, the people who earn a living with the Disney company here in the United States to keep their jobs, and I want the Disney studios to keep running, which, by the way, is another conversation, like we talked about, with respect to the possibility of us losing, movie theaters. Regina says, now that I'm a stockholder, to be honest, I think I'm all for maintaining solvency. Right. That's what I'm talking about. That is one of the dings against the Iger legacy. I mean, it seemed like a great idea when he was doing it, but he made it almost too big. It's almost too big. I used to think Disney was too big to fail, and now I think it's too big to succeed. There's too many parts that are, siphoning off revenue and income from the bottom line, and we need to put it where we want it, where it matters most. Just checking up on some comments here. Somethingville says, who are you selling the ships to? Carnival? They all have no money either. I'm not saying you have to sell them. I'm just saying don't put any money into trying to save them. Mothball the whole thing if you have to. And yes, I think Carnival would buy them, by the way. There's a market for this. There's an aftermarket right now for companies to buy the shuttered businesses and the shuttered, overhead of companies that are dying. That's exactly what Apple would be doing. You think that, Disney looks like it's a dying company. To Apple, it's like, tasty vittles. They just can't wait to get their hands on whatever it is that Disney has. There are still valuable components, even if even if it's, it's going out of business, there are parts of it that are still valuable to somebody else. PDXer says, if Disney did not save money on the books to weather the storm, shame on them. Well, I'm sure that Disney does have cash reserves, but how long is that good for? I don't. Okay. I'm just trying to guess how much it costs to operate the Disney company. Does anybody want to give a guess on how much it costs per month? What's Disney's monthly nut to run the company? You know what I mean? All the divisions, everything, studios, theaters, parks, merchandise, all that. What do you think the monthly nut is? In the billions, right? It's in the billions, probably. Multiply that by 12 or however much. Like, how much do you, if let's say it's $10 billion a month to pay every bill, I think that's a reasonable number. So, no, I think it's way more than 40 million. I'll tell you that much. It's a lot of money, whatever it is. But okay, we'll call it $1 billion. Let's just leave it right there. $1 billion a month. In 12 months, that's $12 billion. Like, how much do you want them to have cash reserves? Do you want them to have hundreds of billions? Right? I mean, how much do you want them to have in order to weather this? It's not infinite. At some point, they've got to. There's a point where they say now is the time to start not spending money, or to try to find other ways. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that they have to do this today. They've got cash reserves to survive this right now. They could probably get loans to get by if they wanted to, sort of keep things going. But at some point, all that stuff comes due. And that's the question. That's the question is how much time do they have? Or how much time do they need? November, December, January, February? What if that's not enough? What if it takes more than 6 months for us to see a change in the buying and spending habits of Disney fans? Somethingville says 10.9 billion in 2017. That's total expenses. Somethingville, is that what you're saying? Because that's $1 billion a month today. So I wasn't that far off. Mean Mad Mike makes a very good point. Businesses don't save money. They reinvest it into the company. That's something that Walt did on the regular. Every time he earned $1, he spent it to make the company bigger and better. Yeah, it's going to take years. It's going to take years for this thing to get back around. Like I said before, this is a nuclear bomb that went off, and not just the Disney company, but in the economy, of the worldwide economy, which I guess is, in some respect, that's comforting in the sense that we're all in this together. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna be hurting the same. It may just drive down prices and drive down demand, and everything will react, and they'll find a new level playing ground somewhere. That's a possibility, and it's gonna. I tell you what, the books that are going to be written about this 15, 20 years from now are going to be fascinating. They're going to be fascinating. Elements Integrated says people want to spend money on Disney, but you can't go there anywhere to do it. We are resetting big time. I don't know about that. Disney World is pretty much open. You can go buy a ticket for Disney World right now. You can buy a ticket and go. I think you can even buy an annual pass and just go. You have to get a reservation with an annual pass. That's still a thing. You still have to get a reservation, but you can buy one. They're not going. You can go to WDW, but they're not. And that's another conversation. That's going to be part of our conversation on Friday. On Friday, I know these are kind of tiresome, worrisome conversations to have right now, but this is what's happening, and we need to talk about it. If you come here for the sobering discussions, come to Fresh Baked Presents for the sobering discussions. I'll keep things positive and happy over on Fresh Baked proper, and I'll show you videos of Main Street all day, and I'll make you cry. You can't buy an annual pass? All right. But on Friday, we're going to talk about attendance, and we're going to talk about Disney's reaction to that. So that's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be enough for a whole, we might have to have 2 talking points for that one, but it's going to be an interesting one. Christiana Cunningham says, I can't see very many people willingly going into Florida if they don't live there. Well, right. That's one of the reasons why attendance is low, is because they're counting on local traffic. They're counting on local residents to go into the park. They're pretty much out of state and out of country business is dead completely. I'm not going to Florida. I mean, I know a man who did. I did. I know a man who did, and he had a great time. I'll say that. But yeah, for the most part, people are just choosing not to go. Sorry about that. I forgot I had my phone on. Adam Reed says, I used to work at Disney TV animation, and animation is the only entertainment avenue that's still running. Disney should ramp up more animation. That's another topic. It's not exactly parks related, but I do have a strong suspicion that animated films and low budget live action films, small things that can be done on a single stage or a single location, are the future of entertainment, and that big, tentpole productions and big productions are done. We won't see any more $300 million films for a long time. Maybe, you know what? We'll make that part 2 of our conversation on Friday. We're going to talk about attendance at the parks, Disney's response, and we're going to talk about the future of Disney Studios and what to expect there, and what the tea leaves are saying with respect to filmed entertainment. There's news about video on demand, that kind of thing. So it's a very interesting conversation. Tony Adams says, I heard Disney's Mulan will release on Disney Plus. No, they've pretty much, there is no date now for Mulan. But that's because the movie theaters won't open. And even if a movie theater did open, would you go? The problem isn't just that the theaters aren't open. The problem is that even if you open them, would people go? Same thing for the parks. The problem isn't that Disneyland isn't open. The problem is that even if Disneyland was open, people wouldn't go. Not enough anyway. I would, but I'm one of, I'm an exception. I'm not the rule. I am, like Kristen Segura says, I'm crazy. But I think the preponderance of folks are just going to stay home until there's a vaccine. And even then, they're going to be, this is changing. This is changing everything, man. Yeah, man, it's rough. It's rough. Okay, we got 3 minutes to go. I'll open it up. Anybody got any questions before we call it a night here? Yeah, props, by the way. Thank you, PDXer. Props to Adam. Adam the Woo hit 500,000 subs. Good on him. Guy deserves it. Great show. Adam the Woo. He's a legend among vloggers, especially us Disney vloggers, man. Love that man. Are you going to go to the new Sony A7S III? I don't know if it has image stabilization. Sizzleman, can you answer that? Have they improved the image stabilization? Because if they have, then I probably will. Jason, save all that up and hit us up tomorrow. We're going to be doing 3 of these a week, you guys. I'm trying to. That's my goal. Hopefully I have enough content and the stamina to do an hour-long conversation 3 days a week. But that's too many. I don't want to, it's just too much. But like I said, unless okay, you said digital stabilization, and that is beyond what they had before. Because I remember the stabilization on the A7S II was awful, right? It's non-existent, if I recall. I haven't used it for a while. I've been using the 6600 because the stabilization was much better on that. Aaron, I don't think it's possible to burn out. For me, I love this. I love the only problem I've had is not having enough time to do all the things that I want to do. Just drink more, Dustin says. All right. How are your pets? They're doing fine. The pets are doing good. Let me see here. Marty Snyder says, "Well, I can't." You talk about the GoPro, Marty. I need a fancy cam. I'm fancy cam only right now. So I'm looking for the best fancy cam. The 6600 and the A7S II are the 2 that I own because of their low light performance and because of their creamy bokeh. I really love that. But the A7S II had really crappy stabilization, so I chose, I moved to the 6600, which is not great, but it's better. I need something that I can walk around with. All right, well, guys, I guess we've reached our 60-minute mark. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you guys had fun today. Pretty good topic. Stay tuned, like I said, for Friday for our discussion. We're going to talk about attendance at Walt Disney World and the future of movies, studio movies. And while you're at it, if you're new to the show, if you've just found us by accident, find us on Fresh Baked. There's a link on the main channel page where we do like other news and opinion bits, and also we used to do live stuff from the parks when it's open. And then we've got Fresh Baked. The Royal Dorks. Find us on the Royal Dorks. Subscribe there. That is me and my wife's personal vlogging channel. That's where we're doing most of our vlogging on that channel now because we can't go to the parks. And then if you want to create or have a virtual Disney trip, if you want to go to a virtual Disneyland, go to Disneyland Tours. There's also a link on the main channel page for that. Disneyland Tours, which you can create your own Disneyland day, create your own adventure. Just start at the beginning, get on the tram, and then go where the winds take you. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time. Fresh Bite.